In philosophy, a point of view is a specific attitude or manner through which a person thinks about something. This figurative usage of the expression dates back to 1730. In this meaning, the usage is synonymous with one of the meanings of the term perspective. The concept of the point of view, or perspective, is highly multifunctional and ambiguous. Many things may be judged from certain personal, traditional, or moral points of view, such as beauty is in the eye of the beholder, a very commonly shared perspective that, well, we all agree or disagree with. Our knowledge about reality is often relative to a certain point of view or perspective. What's up, folks? This is Christy2708 here, and I'm basically making this video because there is something that I want to address, something that I feel like I can put into context much better than most of the people who are discussing and arguing and making criticisms online, solely based on the fact that I have managed to internalize my problems in regards to this particular topic that I'm about to discuss in this video, which is, well, there is this particular anime reviewer that has some, let's just say, inflammatory perspectives or opinions about certain shows that a lot of people disagree with. Now, these people then went on in his comment section and they all called him like, oh, you are acting in bad faith to the show. You do not understand the core concept of the show. Oh, or maybe you didn't pay attention to what the show was trying to tell you. I can understand these points of view, but there is one that I don't think people have either come to the realization for why they are mad at him for expressing his opinions. And one of these very important attributes, at least for me, is by disagreeing with the core message of a show, some people, like myself, when I first watched one of those videos, in particular, you just don't understand Eva, man, it's too complicated. The idea of that title being titled like that, it felt like an offense to me because of what the show meant to me. Because let's just say that, at least for me, I identify one-to-one with the main character from the series on multiple perspectives as the show is laying out for us to view, and by denying the core idea of the show, what it feels like to me, it feels like Scamboli has basically nullified my worldview. And that's what's actually annoying to me, because it feels like I am discarded or completely disregarded from my very own personal point of view, my lens through which I have viewed the world. And I found that offensive because it felt very dismissive of the core message of the show, which, I mean, if you haven't watched Neon Genesis Evangelion, you can skip this discussion completely because I'm going to be talking about some of the core aspects of the show. So if you, for some reason, haven't watched the show from 1995, you can just skip this entire discussion. But the main point that I'm trying to make is related to the fact that by criticizing the show, at least I feel like there are some people, like me, when I first saw the video, who didn't take it necessarily as a criticism of the show, but more about the worldview that is expressed through the show. And by criticizing the show, you indirectly ended up criticizing the people and whose worldview align with the main character, and it makes them mad because, well, it feels like, oh, your worldview is made up, you don't exist, it doesn't reflect reality, you are a fucking pussy, and yeah, it sucks to be you, I guess, only my worldview works. And that is one of the main points why we have so much conflict in the real life. Because, like, this is a conflict of viewpoints. It's like asking the same question, who deserves what? There is no outside being or a system or a supercomputer to delegate who deserves what or whose point is actually the correct one, because there is none. There is no such system. There is no such being. There are people who try to mimic that this system is meant for them, but it's not really meant for anybody, because it's not designed by like an absolute god who is absolutely objective all of the time and does not make any mistakes and is working for like the betterment of every single person at the same time. This doesn't exist. It's not based in reality. And it's because of this difference in perspective, which is why we get to like this entire shenanigans about who deserves what, which land belongs to who. Like you can see this in modern times where Russia decides, oh, Ukraine isn't a real country, it's actually Russia. So we are going to take it back from Russia and you're going to cure their mental illness. And like the Ukraine is like, no, what the fuck are you talking about? There is history of us Ukrainians still being here while we weren't actually Russians, and no, Russia, you do not deserve this land, this is our land. And you see, this is exactly what breeds conflict. It's this distinction in perspective that breeds this sort of like friction between people, because two points of view rub against each other and it creates sparks of conflict. The same thing applies for criticizing specific shows that mean a lot to different people, and people do not realize that that's the actual reason why they hate the person who made the criticism. Maybe Madoka Magica means something to you. Maybe it's like the innocence of the characters, or maybe it's the art design, or maybe it's like the way that the story is told for whatever reason. I don't know that. I can only speak from my own perspective on why I really did not like the subjective opinion, which I know it's a subjective opinion, of the critic that has said that it's boring, it's repetitive, it doesn't build up to anything. I disagree on that fact, because that's not the main point of the show. Like throughout his criticism of the video, he focuses mostly on the plot. But here's the problem. At least for this show, like this is my subjective opinion, of course. Like it's subjective at the end of the day. But for me, the main plot of the story is a cover. It feels like it's a cover, because I don't feel like that's the actual point of the show. The main point of the show, subjectively speaking, what I have been able to deduce is why escaping from reality is not something that you should want, and it's not something that you should seek out as like something that you should want. Because like in real life, escaping from reality is very, let's just say, dangerous, like maybe outright deadly. Because how do people who cannot cope with their existence in this piece of shit reality manifest? Alcoholism, escaping into drugs, escaping into sexual gratifications, diving into all sorts of like dangerous habits in an attempt to escape from the piece of shit reality that they found themselves in. Kinda like the main character of the series. That is the entire point of the series. His conflicts with the people that he is interacting with, like his conflict of I am piloting, like the main conflict of the person, like from the main character is like, oh, he's a pussy, no, he's a pussy, he should be like that one fucking American patriot hero soldier that he went out and took the blow of like 2 grenades for the country, yeah, America. I know like that point probably was like, oh, you see how outlandish your claim is? That might be it, because like I'm autistic. I don't really understand why every single critic makes certain points. Like I can't help it. Some of them it feels like it's more of like a statement, or like, oh yeah, well this pussy exists, or so that Giga Chad absolute warrior exists as well. But here's the problem. At least to someone like me, it feels like you are dismissing my hatred towards this dogshit world where I have experienced the same way that Shinji has experienced a bunch of fucking trauma, problems with his parents, problem with the real world where he is supposed to defend against a bunch of fucking angels who just showed up and knocked on his door because knock knock, it's you're supposed to defend against them because they want nothing but destruction for this world. And like he is basically stuck with like, I don't want any of this, this is painful for me, but I can't do anything about this because if I go away, people are just going to die, and now it's all on my consciousness, and I can't run away because I feel if I run away, people are going to die and they're going to look down on me, which is hurting my ego. But like I can't fight either because it's too painful for me physically and mentally. Like, do you see? That's the internal conflict that you're supposed to take in. Someone like me who has experienced that exact inner conflict. And you go out and say, nah, you're fucking a pussy, man. You're a pussy, man. What the fuck? How can you not be a man enough to fucking man up? You are wishing for Michael Bay's fucking Evangelion meme video. Like, you can just search it up. People who say things like that are more into those types of tropes. Like, oh yeah, I'm the fucking alpha male giga. Not everyone is like that. I am not like that. I am a coward. I do not want to have anything to deal with this entire point of existence. Existing for me has been nothing but pain, agony, and expectations of other people to do like what they expect of me to do. Like, oh, have a decent job. Oh, find yourself a girlfriend. Why don't you have a fucking girlfriend? Oh, when are you going to buy your own house? When are you going to get credit to buy your own house? Like, expectations that I do not need from other people, but they are still imposed on me, and I'm supposed to follow them. Just like how Shinji was expected to be the pilot for that particular thing, so that the other people's wishes can be satisfied. I am 1-to-1 Shinji in his story, and right now the way that I feel is the exact same way he felt in the end of Evangelion movie, where he fucking decides, no, fuck everything, I'm going to destroy and kill everybody, fuck this place is dog shit, I don't want to have anything to do with it, point. Full stop. And to me, like Garnt Gigak has said in his ranking of the most popular videos, it speaks to me. Someone pointed out and understood my depression. That's why when someone like Scamboli comes around and strolls around and says, you just don't understand what the point of the story is boring. Yeah, I'm sorry you didn't have to experience complete dog shit to be able to relate to the characters. That was the whole point of why Shinji couldn't be any other fucking character, because it relates to the experiences of the author from what I was able to deduce, which was in the same mental headspace as I am. I'm sorry you couldn't fucking understand, or no, you didn't want to be able to relate to the character. Let's say it like that, okay? I can understand that. But saying like, oh yeah, if you relate to some fucking pussy, your worldview sucks. Yeah, I'm sorry. That's my lens. Like, those are my lenses. That's the worldview that I saw. What I saw was a world full of shit, full of stupid, it's not just stupid, evil people as well, who expect nothing of you but to do what they are telling you to do. If you don't, you either get physical punishment or some sort of guilt tripping, like I did from my parents. That's the worldview with which I grew up with. And Shinji is a 1-to-1 depiction of that cowardice. Like when he showed up in episode 1, when he wanted to tell to his dad's face that he hates him for what he has done to him, for neglecting him, but he couldn't because he was a coward. I relate to that. Like, I have bullies that I want to put 6 feet under, but I can't do that because I'm a coward, even though I feel like they deserve it. That's the main point of the show. Escaping from a reality that you hate, and yet still being able to cope with it and to reach the end. And like Scamboli mentioned in his review of Eva, when he's like, no, did you sit your pants? No. Did you sit your pants? No. Did you sit your pants? Yes. That was the point. The point is, people have a very bad way to cope with those things, and they delude themselves that it's not like that when it actually is like that. That was the point. Not to mention also the fact, like when Shinji says he is only the way that he is looked at only because he is the pilot of Eva Unit 1. To me, that speaks very loudly to the same way that I am, because I don't feel like I have any sort of self-worth besides the fact that I was at a certain point in time really good at playing Osu. That speaks volumes to me. And when someone like Scamboli strolls around and criticizes that particular worldview, yes, I have a problem with it. I do. I have a problem with the fact that by criticizing the show, you indirectly criticize my worldview. You are trying to invalidate it feels like you're trying to invalidate my worldview, even though you're not exactly trying to do that, and you're trying to say like your objective opinion. That's how it feels to me. Like, there's no such, I don't dabble into like, oh, it's because of the symbolism, it's because of, like, bro, he fucking made the crosses, like the explosions, because he thought he looked cool. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to go into too much symbolism. Like, the main point of the story is to drive the psychological aspect of it, no matter how surface level it is. Because at least to me, it feels like it has its purpose to teach yourself something new about why it is that you are looking at the world in which you are looking at. Like, it has its point in explaining, like, to make you think about certain things. Like, whenever the show goes into detail in episode 16, when it goes like onto that psychological aspect, and he says, why are you so afraid of other people? Well, you're not afraid of other people. You're afraid of the image of yourself that you do not personally know in the mind of other people who are looking at you. To me, that was very insightful. I was like, damn, he's actually right. He was actually kind of right in explaining how social anxiety works. I was like, god damn. That's what I feel like you either omitted or did not vibe with. And I understand that Neon Genesis Evangelion is not for everybody. I used to say this a lot, but in order to properly assess what the show is trying to tell you, you have to be in a very specific mindset and have very specific experiences to be able to even relate to 10% of what the show is trying to put out for you. I am someone who desperately wants to get away from this reality because it has been nothing but dog shit. So of course to me it speaks very loudly, because the main point of the show is escapism is bad and you should try to accept it and move along and try to better this world instead of trying to destroy it. It's basically the point of Albert Camus, like the Sisyphus rolling up the fucking boulder up a hill, but the point is the same. Whoa, fucking camera is dying. Do you accept to live with the complete absurdity of the world in which you are a observer of, or do you choose to completely end that observation right there and then? Basically the same concept, but expressed differently. And I'm only able to draw these conclusions because, I don't know, I just have very different world experience from everybody else, and that's okay, because for as many people there are in the world, there's that many different perspectives, which is why I began the video with the concept of perspective directly from Wikipedia. And another thing to add, like this is just another point to the show, you're not particularly supposed to like the characters of the show either. You are just shown people who are barely getting by coping with different mechanisms, and those mechanisms failing in the end. That's what happens in the last half of the show. Those coping mechanisms that they have used throughout the series of episodes in monotony, slightly getting worse over time. That's the point of repetitiveness in those episodes to begin with. It starts out all joyous, and then something bad happens, like the angel attacks, or something else happens that's equally bad, and slowly but surely their self-worth and their coping mechanisms are stripped away until there's nothing left but the desire to escape from the harsh reality with which they have to deal with. Whether it's Kaji dying, whether it's Rei II's death and being born again as like a completely different thing and Shinji being afraid of it, or like Misato being completely destroyed mentally by Kaji's passing, like the phone that never rings. It's shown how the way that in which those characters cope, like their coping mechanisms are slowly stripped away and they stop working, at which point there is nothing but a sense of nihilism left. That's the way that I have interpreted it. Perspective. So, Scamboli. The main point why people have gripes with these shows being criticized, at least for me, from my perspective, it feels more like you are criticizing my worldview and are trying to invalidate it, as opposed to be just a critic of a critique on the show. Because for certain shows, depending on who you criticize and for what for, like the characters in it, you might upset more people because they identify with what those characters stand for. And at least for me, in Neon Genesis Evangelion, Shinji stands for what I have basically gone through, not in the sense of like the plot, but like the psychological trauma and the absolute crashing down of coping mechanisms failing into complete desperation and depression. How he manifests depression and in episode 25 and 26 is one-to-one to how I feel. Like when he says, I hate myself, so that means that everybody else has to hate me as well. I feel that. That's how I think. That's how it feels like to me. Because I hate myself, it feels like other people must hate myself as well, right? I don't know that. I don't know who hates me and for what reason. But to me, it makes sense. It is a logical delusion that has occurred here, but that I can't really delude myself out of. And so that's why Shinji at least speaks loudly to me. The only thing left for me to do is to finally complete the character arc and to be able to accept myself for what I am. Because that's the happy conclusion of the show. Like the congratulations part, that's what it's supposed to mean. Congratulations, you finally realized how to accept yourself for what you are and to live with the reality that you are given. It's basically Camus' way of accepting absurdity and moving along with it, as opposed to taking yourself out of it, which is like game ending yourself because YouTube. That's the point. So that's why people are overly critical of videos which seem to mock the experience of other people indirectly by criticizing the shows that relate to those people in the end. Your opinion is still subjective, like it's not an objective opinion. I'm not making that illusion. I'm just explaining how it felt like to me whenever I saw the title, which is You Just Don't Understand Evangelion. Yeah, some people dabble into like symbolism and like, oh, but did you see like it's the lens of Longinus, which is like that one spear who killed Jesus Christ in like 33 AD. Actually happened, by the way. It's literally called it's the name of the spear that killed, like, well, not really killed, but like he got stabbed and he was leaking like water or something from his ribs to testify like he was actually that. That's where it's from. Like, it's all just like mumbo jumbo. Plot also makes a little bit of difference, like when they explain that the 80 fields are basically what separates you as a person from another person and not being able to like mash together like they did in the Third Impact, and so that being like the sacred light of the mind. That's basically it, because nobody else is really allowed to portray that. I thought that was kind of cool, but you have to piece these puzzles together by watching the show multiple times, which you won't if you hate it. So yeah, that's basically all that I have to say about Scamboli recent shenanigans. This is a video that I made because of the anime discussions thing, like video that dropped, which is like criticizing, well, not criticizing, it's taking the points that I have tried to convey, like bad faith, ignorant. It's not particularly ignorance, it just feels like a critique on a person's worldview expressed through the show. That's how it feels like to me. Like, this is the main video that I saw. I like, okay, well, this guy probably doesn't care all that much about the show, nor would he really care into like watch this particular show and try to understand what the actual point of the show was, which isn't really all this convoluted. The plot is only to drive the main point of the show, which is escapism and how it manifests itself and why it's not good to dabble in escapism, and the many different facets in which escapism and coping with the reality, the dogshit reality in which we have to live in, manifests itself. It's a critique on the human mind who wants to go as far away from things that are very painful. Like, you get countless episodes where Shinji is being asked, why are you running away from things? And then he is basically replaced with, why is it such a bad thing to run away from things that hurt you? That's the same mentality of junkies, man. That's why it's kind of a bad thing, because while these characters have a way to like escape reality through the human instrumentality project, the Third Impact, whatever you want to call it, in real life this manifests itself as drinking problems, drug problems, sex problems, and a bunch of other personality problems that you can't really solve, depending on, like, it really depends when those synapses were formed, because a therapist can only do so much to undo those neuronal connections if they were formed in the early childhood, because those, if you ask a therapist, those are the hardest to undo ones, because they're also like the most entrenched ones in your brain. But yeah, I don't really hate on Scamboli all that much. I just felt like I needed to share my point of view to maybe, like, if Scamboli eventually sees this, to like maybe shed a light on why it is that people get so defensive about these particular things. It's because it feels more like a critique on their worldview and trying to invalidate said worldview, as opposed to like accepting that worldview as an existing one and not just disregarding it altogether. Which is why I think that his opinion on One Mob Psycho is being better than One Punch Man, like, not every single video is like this, you know, like, I completely agree with this one. it's all subjective. It's all subjective. And like, which one validates my worldview, which one doesn't, like, for what reason, why it is like that. Because some people might be liking One Punch Man more because of like the raw action that it has, and like the expressing of male peak performance aspect of like idea of why people are going to like gym. But like other people like Mob Psycho much better because it's about character development. That's the perspective that I am trying to point out, which matters a lot in our day-to-day lives, because the perspective shapes us who we are. It is also being formed by outsiders, like interacting with every single person from the outside basically is forming you and transforming you as a person throughout time. I changed through time, and I probably will continue to change even if I don't realize it, which is what a secondary point of Eva was. Because if you truly escape from reality and you don't interact with anybody or anything else, there is nobody else who can validate your existence, off of which you can bounce off of to like improve yourself. There is no improvement, there is no nothing, there is no gradual change, no bettering, like, yeah, some people get better, some people get worse, but you don't have that if you don't have anybody else to be able to interact with. That's like why escapism is so bad, because it promotes a status quo in a world where status quo cannot be maintained because it's moving forward. Time moves forward, and with time changes also perspectives, ideas, ideologies get born and die out. That was what this video was all about. It's basically about perspectives and what sometimes criticizing a specific work tends to anger people and why that is. That was the main point of this video. Well, I hope you liked my a bit short ranting video, as opposed to like, well, the other videos where I basically ranted to the camera. But hey, that's all that I have to say in regards to this topic. Who's going to watch this video? I don't know. But I hope that you have at least been able to like understand where I'm coming from with these ideas that I've basically put out. It's the best thing that I can really do. And I really felt the need to express these ideas in regards to like the Scamboli video that he put out recently, because, well, I felt like I was able to understand the motives of the people who are mad at him much better than themselves. It's just one of those things that just work for me. Anyway, that's all from me for today. I hope you enjoyed your stay. Stay healthy, stay awesome, and I'll see you in the next rant video or stream or whatever it is that I might be doing on my YouTube and Twitch channels. By the way, I'm trying to be almost daily live on YouTube and on Twitch. So if you're interested in more of like these ideas being bounced around and talked about, you can just join the stream, you know. Like, turn on that bell notification. I'm just kidding. Like, if you like what you are seeing, you know what to do yourself. I'm not going to be like one of the YouTubers who said, yeah, did you guys know that only 80% of my people are unsubscribed? No, I'm not gonna do that, no. If you watched the video and like what you saw, well, more power to me, I guess. As selfish as that sounds. But yeah, that was all. Bye bye!